Welcome to Analyst Talk with Jason Elder. It's like coffee with an analyst, or it could be whiskey with an analyst reading a spreadsheet, linking crime events, identifying a series, and getting the latest scoop on association news and training. So please don't beat that analyst and join us as we define the law enforcement analysis profession one episode at a time.
Thank you for joining me. I hope many aspects of your life are progressing. My name is Jason Elder, and today our guest has 17 years of law enforcement analysis experience, with 20 years of law enforcement experience overall. She spent her entire career at the Seminole County Sheriff's Office in Florida, starting as a 911 operator and moving her way up to her role now as manager. She holds a certification with FDLE and another certification for California State University. She holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Central Florida, so she sounds like a Florida girl. Please welcome Jennifer Scavotto. Jennifer, how are we doing?
I'm fabulous. Thank you.
Well, we got a lot to go over today. Certainly looking forward to getting your path. As I mentioned in your intro, you spent your entire career with the same sheriff's office. So how did you discover the law enforcement analysis profession?
So somewhat accidentally. So I was going to college, and I think at that point I wanted to be a vet is how I started. Working at a clothing store, and one of my best friends was like, hey, the sheriff's office is hiring for dispatchers and 911 operators. Why don't you go apply with me and we can work together? And I'm old enough to remember the show Rescue 911 with William Shatner. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, yeah,
and I was like, oh, I can work with William Shatner, right? So I applied. And I got it. And I worked up there for a couple of years while I was finishing my degree. By then, I had started to take a lot more criminal justice electives, and I was kind of on the path of sociology. And I think at that time, I decided I maybe want to do social work or child protective investigations or kind of go down that route. So I was fortunate to ride along with one of the CPS investigators in my agency, and I kind of decided it wasn't for me. And one day I saw a posting for a senior crime analyst, and I said, that looks kind of cool. And I read up on it. I saw that it used things like statistics, which I had just taken in college. It used Excel, which I absolutely love. And it described working investigations and doing crime pattern analysis. So I took a chance and I applied. Luckily, they saw something in me and gave me a shot. And it has been just my lifelong kind of passion. That, like I say, I kind of accidentally discovered it because I didn't really have a certificate program when I was going to school then. And I never heard about crime analysis, and it just kind of fit all of my criteria of what I wanted to do. And then it just became my career. And like I said, lifelong passion.
Yeah. So I'm always impressed with the 911 operators. Obviously, that it can be a very stressful job. The hours cannot be all over the place. And certainly, as I've talked to other guests on this show, the things you learn while you're an operator about the police and data, it just very much lends to the role of analysis. It's a nice little gateway there for a lot of people have told me. I guess
It is.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the calls weren't really the stressful part of it. I grew to love the nighttime when it was a little busier and kind of more higher priority things were happening. But I do recommend it for people that they're like, how do I get my foot in the door when you don't have a vacancy? And it really does, because I got an overview of not only my agency, the departments, I get access into my CAD system, to my report management system. Now, as we work towards real-time crime centers, right, a lot of that is reading the CAD calls and kind of understanding how the dispatchers and call takers get that information. And it's just a really good background.
Nice. Now, do you have a favorite story you like to tell when you were an operator?
It's been some time.
Uh-huh.
Not necessarily. I mean, I remember there are certain calls that unfortunately just stuck with me because of the kind of the violent nature of certain things that I heard. But some of my kind of favorite memories is, well, first I met my husband up there. So we used to have our fan favorites of people that would call in and maybe didn't sound right, and they would just have fun stories to tell us. Or him and I would help with training some of the newer people. So him and I would pretend to be like a fighting couple on the phone, or we would pretend to be a customer and like a restaurant, and we would kind of reenact some of the stories that we heard. And we just had a lot of fun at that because it'd be like, really, people would call for that? Yes. Yes, people will call for anything.
Yeah. They always talk about that. Like, there was someone calling in because McDonald's didn't make their Big Mac right or something. There's always
Yeah,
something.
and we would have a lot of parents call and say, my kid won't go to school. I want you to make them. And it's like, I get it, but that's not what the police are for. But we helped as much as we could, and that was just kind of be the first person on the phone, just to try to help them as much as possible. Was kind of nice. And then it just kind of taught me to be able to, okay, you're done with that. You have to hang up, and then you got to move to the next thing. So you don't get a lot of that case resolution up there. And kind of in our field, sometimes we don't get that case resolution. So it helped me be able to process that a little bit better.
Yeah, I feel that people are on like the two spectrums is like they call 911 for everything, or they don't call 911, but they should.
Yeah, or they call and they apologize. I'm so sorry to bother you, but I see somebody hitting somebody. I didn't know which number to call. No, 911 was the correct number. You did the right thing. So we try to encourage those people.
Yeah, because I've done that on occasions, and I'm like, yeah, like why are you calling like 311? You should be calling 911. I'm like, oh, okay. So the analyst position that you got coming out of the 911 operator position, it was already a senior crime analysis role. So were there other analysts at the sheriff's office at this time?
There were, but they did it a little differently back then, and I don't know the reasoning for it. So we had a couple of more administrative analyst positions kind of sprinkled around our jurisdiction, like at our regions. And then in the unit that I was going into, they had 3 intelligence analysts that just did intelligence and investigative work, and then a senior crime analyst, which did that plus crime pattern analysis and statistics. So they called it senior because we did both roles and not just the one. So when I came back years later as the first supervisor, everybody was doing the exact same job. So that was one of the first things that I did, is that I just changed everybody's title to be the exact same thing, which was crime analyst. So we were all consistent, and then we built a level program based off of that. As you get more certifications, you get more experience, then you get more responsibility. You could level up in our professional program.
Nice. That's good to hear. All right. So you kind of talked about it already in a way, but you obviously there's big differences walking into the analyst role. Just, I guess, take us back to those first couple weeks of you starting as an analyst and some of the things you were thinking and feeling.
I was thinking that, okay, this is my first big girl job, even though I know 911 kind of sound, I mean, it's a profession, it's a career. A lot of people spend their whole career there. But to me, I was going to college when it was happening. So this was my first, I have a job. Hopefully my degree helped me get it. And I had absolutely no idea what I was doing because I took no crime analyst. There were no certificate classes I was taking. I took some electives. So I was very nervous. The training program back then, I joke for as my new analysts come in now, I said, back in my day, I kind of do that. My training program was 2 sheets of paper, and it would have things like ArcGIS, and it would be a checkbox. And ArcGIS has a lot of components to it. So it was just very interesting training then because I had no idea what I was doing. Luckily, I was hired with another person that was new to the field as well. So her and I kind of did a lot of the same trainings together and to kind of learn. And then I just kind of started to find my niche. I was mainly focused on crime pattern and statistics. And like I said, I got to work with Excel, I got to work with Access, and that data is kind of more my speed of my favorite things to do. But then we would be on an on-call rotation. And when you're on call, it's if there's a homicide or if there's a shooting, you would do the investigative side of it. And I definitely, me and my partner had the bad juju is what we called it. So somebody would always die when we were on call, but it just gave me really good kind of experience. And then as more projects came up, I think my bosses just kind of saw that I was dedicated and I worked with a great team of people, but they just kept pushing me and challenging me to try new things. And that just kind of helped. And then going to certain trainings just kind of helped, and following the analyst kind of network and, hey, does anybody know how to do this? And just kind of learning. And so it was a nervous time, but it was a fun time too, because I just got to learn a whole new career. And like I said, I just kind of fell in love with it.
Yeah, it sounds like they just kept giving you stuff until they see if you would break, see what you could handle.
Yep, pretty much.
So I guess in terms of Seminole County, then just for the listeners who might not be familiar with the area, what are some of the crime trends or crime issues that they have in the area?
So we're in the Central Florida area, and we are surrounded by Orange County, Osceola, Lake, and Volusia, and Brevard kind of off to the side. So compared to Orange and Volusia, size-wise and population, we're not there. So
Hmm.
it's a lot of residential property related crimes, fraud. We do have the occasional homicide. At least when I started, it seemed like it was maybe once or twice a year. But unfortunately, that has been increasing the last couple. We had some rival gangs kind of going back and forth, but one of them was arrested last year for a homicide, and most of them are in custody right now. So it's a relatively very safe area, safe enough that I feel comfortable living in it, but it's mainly property crimes is kind of our biggest thing.
I see. I see. So, and that's where you're most likely looking for patterns and trends, whether burglaries, robbery, thefts from auto type
Yes.
of thing.
Yeah, when I started, we were region assigned and then we switched to be crime based. So I focused on vehicle burglaries and retail thefts were kind of my starting point.
All right. All right. Well, this leads us to your analyst badge story. And for those that may be new to the show, the analyst badge story is a career-defining case or project that an analyst works. So it's about 2010. So now you've been at this analyst gig for a couple of years, and you get assigned an internet gambling case.
Yes. So I got a phone call from my captain, said, "Hey, I need you and this person to go meet over with the captain in another division." And he kind of laid out that there was a statewide internet gambling investigation about to start. They were going to just start local Seminole County and Volusia County, and they just needed some help. And so he had just gotten back some financial records for some corporations, and everything he was doing was on paper.
Hmm.
So I looked at him and said, "Oh no, we're not doing that. We're going to convert to Excel." And if I could teach a sworn person to use Excel for financial analysis, I feel like I can teach almost anything. But we
Yeah.
kind of worked it as it was going to be part-time. I was going to the Analyst Academy while this was going on. And then right after I graduated, they said, "Listen, this is going to be a statewide thing. We're going to pull in FDLE. We're going to pull in a lot of other agencies. You're going to be assigned to this case permanently." And that is what I worked for the next 4 years of my career doing a lot of the investigative work, but all financial analysis on the businesses, on all of the people associated with them. We would be assigned certain cells of people. So I did that. We would go sometimes undercover with the detectives to these internet gambling facilities holding the recordings and trying to act casual. And so we did that. And then at the end of that, we ended up arresting, I think it was like 57 people, seizing over $100 million, and everybody went to prison. But then our court system kind of got into play. And if you've been in the field for a while, most of them pled out, most of them got their property back. We took one person to trial who was convicted of almost all of the charges. And then a couple years later, he appealed and he won his appeal, and then we null product.
Okay. Help me understand what this actually is. Is this something where it's a legitimate business that is doing illegal activity, or is this just a total illegitimate business with this internet
Yeah, so
gambling?
they were claiming that they were a nonprofit organization, and when you went into their businesses, a certain amount of proceeds would go towards veterans. And a couple of them were veterans, and everything was very veteran based. But when you went into these facilities, and they were all over the state, it would be like in a shopping center. There would be about 60 or 70 computers in some places, and other places there are close to 200. And they said that they were like McDonald's, like scratch off tickets.
Hmm.
When they do that, they said it's like scratch off, but it very much the software was a casino kind of slot machine. And so people would just spend millions and millions of dollars just gambling away at these slot machines. And so they had a couple of charges. They had charges that were based off of the gambling side of it, but they also had charges against the fact that they were representing themselves as nonprofit organization. And it's just sad to see a lot of people kind of spending all their time there, spending all their money. A lot of these places were prone to violence that because they would deal in cash, that a lot of these facilities would be robbed. People would have shootings during the robbery. So that's kind of what started to gauge our attention towards them, is all of the shootings and robberies that were happening.
Yeah, because is slot machines legal now in Florida?
I don't know, because
I've never seen any.
down in Tampa, don't they have some?
Oh, maybe they do. I don't
I
know.
am out of that realm,
Oh,
so I do
yeah.
not keep up with it whatsoever.
Okay, yeah, because I'm just as you were talking here, I was just like, have I seen one? I don't even know if I've seen one, but maybe it is. But obviously, certainly that's probably a recent phenomena if they do allow slot machines here in Florida. But obviously, back in 2010, like you're describing here, that's illegal, unregulated, and this is going on at a strip mall.
Yes, all over, all over.
Oh man, it makes it more sad from my point of view that it was dealing with veterans.
Well,
And
yeah, and what broke my heart, I mean, they did give some proceeds, but nowhere near what they were making, right?
yeah,
I got to see all the checks that they were cashing for themselves. But not only that fact, but what was heartbreaking is I was lucky enough to send in an interview where they were potentially going to pull one of the patrons of the business in to testify. And this woman was in her 70s and she still works because she has to support her family, and she went through very personal sad story at that, but she spent lots and lots of money there. And I just, in my head, I mean, her winnings were not that much, as she just spent all of that money, and she's got to keep working to support this habit. And I know
ugh,
it's an addictive habit. It was heartbreaking to see all the patrons that were just kind of spending their money there.
man, yeah. You said they were all over Florida, so you're not just dealing with the ones in Orlando. You were dealing with all across the state.
Correct, correct. That's why FDLE got involved with the investigation and worked alongside with us.
Yeah, and that did you say that took 4 years to get through all those?
4 years. Yep. To get all, we
Wow,
had, I think it was like 7 or 8 filing cabinets just full of bank records for all of their
man.
personal records and all of their corporate records. And then on the fourth year, it was about in 2014 is when we arrested everybody and started to take everybody to court.
Oh man, oh man. So, huh? That is an interesting case, and certainly once again, you just kind of get thrown into a financial crimes investigation. Like just that, it always amazes me what analysts get thrown into, and it's just
Correct.
you just kind of almost kind of like a whack-a-mole kind of thing. It's like, oh well, give it to the analysts, they'll take it, and you just wear so many different hats and have so many different experiences.
Yes, and I was fortunate enough that it was lining up at the time that I was in the academy. And
Hmm.
what I try to tell people when I'm teaching in the academy is I get you may not do this today, but you never know what tomorrow is going to bring you. And it was, I just got assigned this case, and the next week I went back to the academy and they just started teaching me financial analysis. And so I was asking lots and lots of different questions pertaining to this particular investigation. They were kind of helped me along the way. And it's funny that the instructor for that course later was one of the FDLE analysts that came to work the statewide gambling case with me. And she
Hmm.
was like, I remember when you were in class and you were asking lots and lots of questions, and this all makes sense now. And I said, yes, it does.
Yeah. Who was that?
Karen Allen
Okay.
out of kind of the Hillsborough, Tampa area.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. So no, that's we'll get to that program in a little bit, but it is a wonderful program, and it just sets you up with so many a nice network of analysts all across the state. But what this does lead, the aftermath of this is you become a financial crimes investigator with Seminole County.
I do. So they decided to kind of create a civilian investigator role as part of working on this case.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first promotion.
Okay. And that's what I was going to ask you. You already mentioned that it's a civilian position because obviously when I hear investigator, that has a certain certification for sworn to be an investigator. Was that already an established civilian role that they had, or was that something new that they were trying?
They had other civilian investigator positions in some other areas, I think for like our professional standards area. And they were like, listen, you are doing analytical work, but as we were kind of going out on the scene and doing a little bit more, they wanted it to have a little bit more, I don't know if it was like finesse to the title of it. And then so they created the financial crime civilian investigator position for me, and I got
Mhm.
promoted into that. And I'm happy to report that it's still a position that exists over in that department. And they've actually expanded it to include a couple other people where they kind of help, just not in a sworn role, more for the civilian side of it.
Okay. So then was there training involved with that in terms just because you're out and about more and the duties and basic, I guess what's the word, the maybe the dangers that go on with all that, because obviously you're out and about more and you're acting as agent of the sheriff's office.
It was more on the job training, and every
Mhm.
time I went out, I went with somebody sworn.
I
And it wasn't, we weren't going the nighttime hours when the robberies and the shootings were happening. We were going in the
Mhm.
middle of the day. So I felt safe. I felt
Mhm.
completely safe the entire time. We had safety discussions with whichever sworn agent I was kind of going around with. So I was very comfortable. And it was fun. It was something new, something kind of new to try from not being in the office. I mean, I love being in an office setting,
Mhm.
but it was definitely interesting experience to kind of take away.
Yeah. Well, I think it really would hone in your social skills and
Mhm.
maybe even your soft skills, going out and talking with people and articulating what you're doing and the whole idea of just asking the right question as you talked about before. So I would think that was really honed in your skills to, as you progress through your career here, really helps you with your supervisory roles.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's get to that then, since I let the cat out of the bag. So then then in 2014 you become a supervisor. So now you just in a matter of it's 2008, and then 2013 you're an investigator, and now it's 2014, and now you're the crime analysis supervisor. So does this mean that the number of analysts have grown in the sheriff's office, and this was a new position, or was this something that was already established?
So from the time when I was over during that investigation, they did grow a little bit.
Hmm.
They had some people come down that I said were kind of more in the administrative analyst role, but those people got bored and just started to do more. So when I came back to the unit, there were now 14 analysts,
Hmm.
and they were all reporting to two or three different sergeants.
Hmm.
So they started at the command level, started to have a conversation about maybe we should centralize all of the analysts, maybe they should be under one supervisory role, and maybe it should be a civilian that actually works in the field versus a sworn sergeant, which I know a lot of agencies, it's like 50-50. Some
Hmm.
report to sworn entity and some report to civilian. So this was kind of their, I don't know if it was their test, and I was lucky enough to be the one selected. So I came in, my lieutenant at the time, I remember he sat me down and he's like, I'm so happy you're here because there are so many things that this unit needs, and they need a you. And
Hmm.
he's like, so
Nice.
here are my goals. And then I told him what my goals were, and we worked together for many, many years to actually get successfully achieve a lot of those goals. So yeah, so I came in and it was 14 people, and I was back in the position of I have no idea what I'm doing and kind of nervous, and just kind of hit the ground running with what we could do to kind of progress the profession in my agency.
Yeah. So when it was centralized, is this centralized in only hierarchy, or was this also centralized physically, like everybody was in the same office?
It was both, that they were in the same office and they were under the same, we had like a division, but
Hmm.
each division had units, and three separate units had analysts. So it was still kind of under the division hierarchy, but then they just moved all under me. And actually I think at the time there may have been 10 or 11, and then one of the first transitions was I inherited a couple of full-time employees that were doing one role that could have done more. So we transitioned what was once a civilian role for our warrant processes into analytical processes. So then it was 14 people.
I got you. I got you. So when you are centralizing this, one of the obviously when you talk about physical centralizing the analysts, one of the I guess cons that's often brought up in that is that they won't have like that direct access to those that they're supporting if they're in a supporting role for like a sergeant, as you mentioned, or an investigator or a detective. So I just kind of made me talk through. Will you talk through that? Like, how did you make sure that obviously the analysts, that now that they're centralized, are being responsive to those that they're trying to support?
That's often a conversation that I have with lots of captains, and especially as I move towards getting a countywide task force and having the city analysts come work for me. That was the number one thing. Well, I need to go around the corner and I need to see them to ask them my question.
Mhm.
And what I would kind of talk with them through is we tested that years ago. We sent an analyst to each region. And do you know how many sworn people actually sit in the office every day? Yep, it's slim to none. So they went over there and they were the only people there.
Yeah.
So I say this and it's like, listen, you're cops, right? You're out in the field. That is your job. So you're going to have an analyst that's sitting by themselves and that's not really as productive as they can be. When we work in this field, we're going to come across something and we're going to get stuck, or we want somebody else's opinion, and it's nice to just kind of turn to your partner next to you and say, hey, have you ever had this? Let me show you. And you can kind of work through the problem together because you all have different experiences. With this technology in this day and age, there are thousands of ways to get a hold of somebody. We have emails, we have cell phones. We do a lot of communication on the radio for the real-time crime center. So it's what I would tell them is like, listen, it's better for the analyst to be in one room together, because then it's 20 minds together working together to solve the problem versus people kind of secluded. And sometimes we also have sworn that don't want to share information because they want to kind of hold on to their case. And analysts don't work like that. Analysts want to share information because they want to solve the problem. They want to stop crime from happening. So having them all together actually increase the communication with sharing of connecting cases together and identifying the bad guy and finding the bad guy so the bad guy can go to prison. So what I would do for a lot of the people that were kind of nervous about that, or especially when my city people were starting to come over, I'd be like, listen, just test it out, right? You can have them a couple of days, we'll kind of share them, but test it out. If there's any time that you can't get a hold of them, then you let me know and we'll handle that problem. But it's just works so much better. And I have 3 cities now that are part of our task force. And anytime one of their command needs them, they call them, no problem, and they get what they need. And the bonus of them kind of being over here is they also get access to me, my other supervisors, my other staff, so they never kind of miss a beat.
Nice. Nice. As you're looking back at starting to be a supervisor and things that you learned, or maybe things that you accomplished, like what comes to mind as you look back?
Like I said, I was nervous. They started to send me to some leadership classes, and I remember trying to be the supervisor that I wanted as a employee. They say that all of your supervisors that you've had in the past, you will learn something from them. Either if they're a bad supervisor, you'll learn what you don't want to do, and if they're a good supervisor, they'll learn right. You'll learn what you want to kind of accomplish and repeat. But I think I started to, well, as an employee, I would want to hear it this way. So I would approach that kind of style for a conversation of how I wanted to hear it. And that's not a good way to supervise a unique group of people. So I feel like it was within my first month or two, and my lieutenant brought me in and he's like, okay, I just need to kind of tell you, here are the 5 things that you're doing wrong. And I was really upset about it. And he's like, but hey, it's okay. These are all of the first time supervisor mistakes that everybody makes. So he goes, here's how you learn from it. And that's what I did. And so I've started to try. I started to try the approach of you need to be fair across your people, but you can't supervise everybody the exact same way because they are all different personalities. They're all different people. They get motivated by different things. So you have to approach them each differently, and don't approach them like don't make them you. They're not you, which is good. They're good that they're not you, right? We want different, unique people within a group because it just makes your group more efficient, more productive. So I think I just started to take that approach a little bit further into my career, and hopefully my people have benefited from that.
Yeah. No, it's tough, but that was probably a great lesson. And as you said, that you learned from that supervisor. And so it was, what did you say? It was just like a month in or a month or 2 in, and they sat you down and said, hey, this is going off the rails. We need to straighten it back out. So kudos to him for just nipping it in the bud in the very beginning.
And I mean, it was certain things like as a first time supervisor, delegation is often a number one problem. And I remember telling him, I was like, well, I feel bad for assigning them work. And he laughed and he's like, but that's your job and that's their job. Like, don't sugarcoat it. Just tell them this is what I need and this is when I need it by, and just be honest and upfront. And I think I was trying to be too nice because I felt bad. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I need you to do this real quick for me. And it's due in like an hour. And it was kind of that. And it's like, no, just be upfront. Hey, this person asked for this. We told them we're going to get it. You have an hour deadline. If you need help, let me know. Right. And I think that directness was very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think this is, and when I've been in supervisory roles where I've struggled with this is articulating it in such a way that it's meeting the expectations, right? I have trouble finding that nice happy medium of giving them just the right amount of information so they can just go do, and either I'm either micromanaging or I'm not giving them enough information, and so the end product doesn't meet expectations.
And yeah, and it's a balance game, right? You
Hmm.
have the assignment, and sometimes you don't agree with the assignment, right? And you have to sell that to them without sounding fake, but
Hmm.
without sounding like you're putting the blame on whoever just gave you the assignment.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a balance of this is the assignment, and I think I just kind of started to throw it out of here's what it is. If you have questions or need more clarification or need assistance, let me know, and then I would back off.
Yeah.
And it took some time, especially as we would have newer analysts coming in. You have to understand that they're going to take longer at it. They're not going to do it the exact way that you would like it, but it's to kind of let them learn on their own. Because if what I try to tell my new supervisors is if you do the work for them, they will never learn how to do it themselves. And
Mm.
I know it's faster for you to do it in 2 minutes, but how did you get to be able to do it that fast in 2 minutes? It's because you've done this 50 times. You need to let them have their 50 times to learn how to do it.
Yeah, no, that's good advice too. And I and that definitely can be hard when you're in such an environment of getting things as quickly as possible out as quickly as possible, right? That
Correct.
fast-paced environment of the police department, and you're also trying to lift all ships type of thing.
Yes.
This is Amanda Wiggins, and my public service announcement for you, specifically analysts, is your decisions, your actions, your work provide good to this world. Know the importance of these things and take pride in doing your best, because it's your best that truly makes a difference.
I'm Mandy Krueger, and this public service announcement is for you. Are you tired? Don't feel like doing that response times analysis? Newsflash, neither do I. Go drink a cup of coffee, grab yourself a dirty soda if you're in Utah, pull your weight, don't be a slacker.
Let's move on to your other badge story. So now it's 2017, and as you already mentioned, there a little bit more and more homicides in Seminole County. So this is actually a triple homicide.
Yeah, and actually I looked it up because time blends together. It was 2019 that it
Oh,
happened
okay.
that we got how I feel like some of the calls start. We got a call for service to a particular house that their employee hadn't shown up for work, and that was
Mm.
unusual. And
Hmm.
then while we were making our way out there, because it's one of our rural kind of areas, we get a second call for service that the son hadn't shown up.
Hmm.
So they go to the house, they decide to make forced entry, and they found three people deceased. It was the mother, the father, and the brother, one of the sons.
Mm.
And so, as frustrating as it was, the cops, they went in, they saw that they were all deceased, that they couldn't help them in any way, and then they exited the house because they had to wait for a search warrant. So we were just told we had a triple homicide, and they wanted to know who did it, but they had no information. They didn't even know who was deceased because they couldn't go back into the house until the judge signed the warrant. So my team kind of worked this one together, that we went back and we were watching the body camera video, right? We decided we identified who was registered to live at the house. We identified all the parties, and they were saying that they thought the victims were these three certain people. But when we went back and watched the body camera footage, we noticed that one of the victims looked more like the father than the son. So we switched gears and told everybody to start looking for the son. And back then, we didn't really have the technology that we do now with license plate readers. So it took some time. It actually took us a couple of days, I believe, to find him in a neighboring city. But eventually he got in custody and he admitted to it. And it's been very popular on the news. It was Grant Amato, who was seeing a Russian escort online. His dad kind of cut him off, and he was mad about it. So he went and he executed his mother. His dad came home from work. He killed him. He used his dad's phone to text his brother to come home. And a couple hours later, when his brother came home, he killed him. So it's just a really, really sad story. But that case, it was so interesting because of what my team was able to do then, with limited information and limited technology, and kind of how they were the reason that we switched gears of who we were looking for, because they were able to kind of go back and kind of work it from that angle. And then as we kind of started to work through this case with our major crimes, is we started to notice it was a lot of information, because we had 3 crime scenes that we had to deal with. They had cars, they had multiple victims. There was a lot of cell phone records, a lot of electronic records that needed to be analyzed and examined. And it was a huge case, and it was very hard to keep everything organized. And so what came from this is, one of my analysts suggested, like, is there a way that we can digitally kind of bring something together where the detectives and the analysts can have like a hub of information? And we kind of started a template, like a OneNote notebook template that my detectives and analysts use. And it's now our standard template that anytime anything major happens, we go to that. And it's just so much easier to kind of organize all of that information.
Yeah, because that's like a living document where multiple people can be entering information at once.
Correct. And it was, I mean, I know some detectives live on paper, but it was some question would come up of, did somebody interview this witness? And hold on, let me get my notepad. And they would start kind of funneling through, let me see if I can find it. And I'm like, oh, if we just could control F this situation, right? This would be so much nicer.
Yeah.
And so now moving forward, we developed it with the detectives, so they have in there what they need. And yeah, everybody's in it at the same time, so information doesn't get missed as much. And it was one of those cases that just seemed like it would be a movie one day. And I think they made several documentaries about him, and he was just in the news again for hiring to kill somebody. So he's in prison for a very long time. But yes, he met another girlfriend, and I think they were just both arrested and charged for trying to hire somebody to kill her husband.
Boy. So how old was the suspect when this was going on?
20s? I don't remember. 20, either late 20s, early 30s, I think.
Okay. And is the death penalty on the table?
I think it was. I don't think he got it. I think he just got several life sentences.
Okay. And what instantly came to mind is when the mother and the father, you could argue that was emotional, but the brother to actually text them and then basically kill him from there, that's pretty premeditated.
Yes.
Huh. All right, man, that is an interesting story, and that I guess he doesn't feel like he's getting out anytime soon, so he might as well just keep on trying to kill people from his perspective.
So sad.
But so all right, now you kind of learn as you go, and it's interesting what comes out of some of these big investigations as you already have described in your career. All right. Well, then, and you just recently got promoted again, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Now you are manager of the Analysis and Intelligence Center. And
yeah.
So the Analysis and Intelligence, and I think you mentioned it, everybody's a crime analyst. Is there a debate about what's intelligence and what's crime analysis, or is it all the same thing still?
Yeah, so the way that we name, right, every agency kind of names their analysts different. They're crime analysts in name, but they do crime intelligence and investigative. And kind of as my career went on, one of the goals that I had with my lieutenant was expanding, right? That this needs to be this is a career. It needs to be a career at Seminole County. So over the course of the years, we had additional positions, like I said, kind of transform into an analyst role. And as we got more people, we were able to expand that. Then a couple years later, probably about a year and a half later, we got a second supervisor. So then we kind of split the team in half, and we started to do crime pattern analysis. We were doing statistical analysis. Although we were housed under one division with sworn, we were basically support for anybody. So property crimes would use us for investigative. Our counterterrorism would use us for the intelligence side. We started to get into the warrant side of things. So my fugitive team leans on those analysts to try to find fugitives. We started to expand and then get into the corrections intelligence side. So one of my units is actually corrections intelligence, and they deal with all of the communications in and out of the jail. They assist with the investigations in and out of the jail. And when that happened, we were able to create a third supervisor position and promote. And then most recently, this is the first time we've ever had a manager civilian over the analyst. We've always reported to a sworn lieutenant. So this is just kind of the next step in progression of the career at our agency, that my command is very supportive of our team and how well our team works, and just kind of growing that career. So it's nice to have that support.
Yeah, no, this is impressive. Really getting into team building and getting into various aspects, as you mentioned. The real-time crime center. You developed the real-time crime center, so obviously, we probably could have a whole conversation on developing crime center, but I do want to touch on it a little bit just to get your quick take on the experience.
Yeah, it was probably a year after I got promoted. That's when all of the articles, I think, just started about Philadelphia has a real-time crime center, LA has one, and it was what would it look like to develop a crime center at Seminole County? And so I wrote a 3-step proposal as to kind of transition into it, because it was do this, we don't have any staff to give you, and we don't have any funds to give you. So it's like, how can you do more with less type thing? So over the years, we would just start incorporating how we were assisting the deputies on the road. And I was fortunate enough to have some very skilled and talented and motivated analysts that really kind of were very passionate about this. And just kind of over the years, we would just progress how often we were helping, how much we were helping. As we got more technology, we were able to help a lot more. And then finally, we just started to transition a lot more of our kind of reactive tasks to more proactive for the crime center. As you know, wouldn't it be nice if by the time the deputy rolled up on the scene, the analyst already solved who did it and where they are right now? And that's kind of the type of work that they're doing. Yeah, it's very impressive. I'm very lucky to work with such skilled and kind of motivated people that have been doing more with less, and they'll help with the call, and then they'll go back to the requests, and then we'll have a stats request come in and they'll do that. And then somebody will get arrested and they'll start monitoring their jail communications and get the admission of guilt on the phone call. So it all kind of cycles together. And that's kind of the nice thing about everybody being under the same umbrella, is the kind of the cycle of the criminal falls under my unit, right? Somebody's going to get arrested during the call. We're going to be helping with it. Eventually they may write a warrant. So that's going to pull in my fugitive side of things. Eventually they will get in custody, and then my jail side is going to take over, and just kind of all of that information sharing just makes it beneficial.
All right. Nice. Now, as manager, are you in the sheriff's inner circle? Are you on as an executive team?
A little bit lower than that. So it goes sheriff, under sheriff, chiefs, captains, and then I'm at the equivalent to a lieutenant level, which is right under a captain.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, because one of my soapboxes on this show is I really want to see civilian analysts work their way up to being on police departments or sheriff's office executive teams. And I really think that'll do a lot for the profession and a lot for the analysis as a whole, the profession as a whole, to take leaps and bounds forward. And with that, the more and more people you get that. So that's why I was curious to know where you were at in the pecking order.
Not yet. And I don't know if they know that that's my eventual end goal. I mean, I've been in for 20 years. I still have some time, right? I know I just got this position. I'm still going to do great, and I'm going to put my time in. But I mean, we have a bunch of civilian executive staff already at my agency. I know we don't like to be compared to crime analysts or crime scene analysts. Forensics is very different from our job. However, I like the structure that our agency has, is they have a director, then a manager, then all of their supervisors. So I could kind of see us almost being equivalent in that sense of we're a civilian support entity. To have those different levels would be really nice. So I haven't given up. I still have lots of years ahead of me, and that's kind of my end goal. Nice.
Well, hey, keep on flying. Good for you. All right, you talked about being a supervisor. I like to ask questions about hiring analysts. To get you, just pick your brain in terms of things that you look for in an analyst, whether it's a question that you ask or it's a thing what separates out your candidates as you're making the decision on who to hire.
So we most of the time get more entry level type positions where I have people that just have graduated. They don't really have a lot of experience. So when I get 100 applicants that look the same,
Mhm.
what we do is we kind of do a step process. So me and the supervisor will go through the application and we'll go through the resume to see if anything can make them stand apart. So certain things like doing an internship at a law enforcement agency, having some type of law enforcement experience that tells me you've been exposed to this profession a little bit, kind of throws you
Yeah.
up there. I do have a lot of people that will apply that has some type of crime scene or forensics background, and I may or may take them, but in the back of my mind, I'm asking myself, do they understand this position is something different than crime
Yeah.
scene? The very
Mhm.
different field. So we kind of go through, we see if we see any red flags. If somebody job hops like every 6 months, you may kind of make it a little lower on my list. And we typically whittle that list down in half. And then you get a skills test. And we issue a skills test to see, it's an open book skills test. It does some investigative digging searches on the internet, and then it does some Excel testing. But I'm looking for, did you try or did you give up? But it also kind of gives them the perspective of what the job may entail. Because I've had
Mhm.
some people come up to me afterwards and say, "Is this the job?" And I say, "Well, yeah, it's a part of it." And they're like, "Well, I didn't think that this is what I wanted. I think I'm going to withdraw." And so I kind of
Mhm.
do that test to not only see who can kind of make it forward, but then also to give them a realistic perspective as to what the job actually is at my agency. Because right, every agency kind of treat their analysts do different things. So to give them that exposure. And then you have to score a certain percentage high, and then you get interview. And we change our interview questions every year. We kind of ask different questions, and at the end of the interview process, kind of go through the question and say, was this productive? Did this help me get what I need to know about a person? Because really, when it all comes down to it, if you don't have the experience, which most of our people don't, it's, can you learn the job and will you fit in with my team? Those are kind of the two things that I'm looking for, because you may have no experience, but you may be a great analyst at the end of my training program. But if you stick to yourself and you can't work with a team, then you're not going to kind of fit in here. We're looking for people that are motivated. We're looking for the people that are proactive and are willing to help and are getting in this field to be in this profession.
So the test that you mentioned, obviously they come into the office. There's a computer there. You mentioned it's open book, so that's one part of the process. So that's not anything that's going on online.
Yeah, we come up with certain questions that they have to work
Hmm.
through, and questions that we know that they can find online.
I gotcha. I gotcha. No, that's. I think it's you have to have enough information to make a decision, right? And that's a big part of being an analyst. And so you have to create a process in which you can gather enough information on these candidates to differentiate one from the other.
Correct.
All right, good deal. All right. I see on your resume, I mentioned your certifications during your intro, both Florida and California, but I also see this criminal justice executive leadership position, and you mentioned that this was a Florida program. So I'm curious what this program is and what you got out of it.
So FDLE does a leadership program, and at the time, I think they were partnering with FSA, similar to the analyst program, where this one was a 4-month program. You go for a week each month. This one was a little different because it was a lot of presentations, but a lot of more active discussion. And you may not have heard about it as much because most of the time it's just for sworn.
Hmm.
And one of I think it was my lieutenant or my captain, had just, sent somebody through, and they're like, "Do you want to go to it?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So they asked if civilians could, and they ended up sending me, and I think there were 2 other civilians in my class. And so
Hmm.
naturally, some of the conversations that they had were very sworn driven. So they would have conversations about ethics, but it's things like something like carrying a firearm off duty. Is that ethical, not ethical? Or arresting somebody for this, or just giving them a warning, is that ethical or not ethical? So there were obviously certain things that didn't apply to the analyst civilian role, but because we were support for sworn, a lot of the kind of lessons and the discussions that we had, I was kind of able to kind of fit into my world. How do I make this apply to a civilian versus they're talking about a cop that just got into an officer involved shooting, how do you help them through it? Obviously, my team is never going to do that. My team is going to get exposed to things in the investigation that I still need to worry about their mental health. I still need to make sure that they can process what they just witnessed and that they're not bothered by it to an extent that it's going to affect their life negatively. So I liked that part of it. I think we had to do a presentation at the end. I liked that it didn't have as much like schoolwork and assignments as the Analyst Academy, but the discussions were really good. It was also really good to hear experience from other people, because I had some people that were sergeants for 2 years in that class, and then some that had been sergeants for 20 years. So there was a lot of, I've been in this situation and this is how I dealt with it. So I actually still keep in contact with pretty much everybody in that class. And it's nice to also see how they have kind of progressed in their career. And I think they do have a next level. So that was for like first line supervisors. I believe they have a next level up that's for executive, the manager and lieutenant. And then they have even higher ones for once you get to like captain and chief level. So I think once I've had a little bit of time under my belt in this new role, I may try to approach it, because this is kind of next level up, and kind of how am I going to navigate from a manager level different from first line supervisor.
I'm curious to know about personnel conflict. I was in a recent conversation with somebody, and we were talking about conflict resolution with employees, and the idea of mediation came up, and it was interesting because the one person was like, oh, mediation means a certain thing, you need to be certified to be a mediator, and it got a little bit of debate, like splitting hairs in terms of, okay, you're trying to resolve the conflict or mediate, or what words are you using? So I'm kind of curious, what was their type of mediation training or conflict resolution in this leadership course?
A little bit, not so much that I could take it away and be like, oh, I'm going to use this procedure every single time it's going to work. It was a lot of, it depends on the situation and it depends on the person. Is it better to bring the two people that have conflict in to kind of hash it out? Is it better to kind of work on each of the problems on either side and see if you can resolve it that way? So they just kind of talked about different personalities, and they talked a lot about generations and what the pros and cons are each generation, right? Millennials have a bad rap, but there's good things about millennials, and some people that are millennials be like, oh, I can't stand a Gen Xer, but there's good things. So they talk just a lot about like understanding the strengths of not only generational characteristics, but also of the person, trying to recognize, again, individually how to work with that person to try to not have conflict.
All right. Good deal. All right. So this leads into the advice section that I always earmark for these interviews. So what advice do you have for our listeners, whether it's new analysts or experienced analysts, maybe a return on investment, what they can study today that can be important 5 years from now?
So for kind of studying what would be beneficial in the next 5 years, anything open source, social media. I feel like, I know social media changes, but it's still very much around. I mean, when I started, we were still on MySpace, to show you how long ago it was. So we did have social media back then, but obviously it has progressed into something different now. So social media is still going to be around. So just keeping up with those trends of what information people put out there is good. Definitely data analysis, anything tech wise, right? We have video management systems, we have license plate readers, we have a lot more technology at our hand that people can try to stay up to that and study to kind of put towards that. For the advice, I'd like to, if you're a newer analyst, I would say try everything. Don't go into the field saying, oh, I'm definitely going to be this, right? I interview people and they're like, I'm going to be a federal analyst. Have you ever tried local? Maybe local is kind of what more you want to do. So kind of try everything. And I think that can go for the experienced analyst too. I know you can get into a niche, but try something new. See, maybe you'll like that. Maybe that'll kind of enhance all of your skills. A lot of people are doing this already, but I very much, when people are getting into it, this just isn't a job. This is a career. This is a profession. So kind of treat it like that, because you can spend many years in this profession and have a lot of impact on your community. And I think that that's why a lot of people are in this field, and it's good for you. It's good for our community. And then I would just lastly kind of say, I feel like some analysts get very into like, they're introverts, they're in like a little bubble, and they're very nervous about kind of getting out there, or they think that they're not good at what they do and they don't have that confidence. And when you start talking to them, they absolutely know what they're doing. Just because you're not sworn doesn't mean you're not good at solving crimes. So kind of have that confidence to put yourself out there and the knowledge that you have, because 99.9% of the time, you're 100% correct. So people need to hear kind of what you know.
Very good. All right. Well, let's finish up with personal interests. And we, in a prep call here, we found out that we are both kind of the big fans of Disney World and Universal Studios in Orlando, and we've both had annual passes with that. So I wanted to take some time and geek out on theme parks in Orlando. So we'll just start with Disney. And so with Disney, it's obviously such a big area to navigate and everything else. I always have trouble, like somebody that's just trying to come in for a couple of days, like what they should do. But I guess what are some of just your thoughts on Disney World and exploring it, and some of the things that maybe are must-dos for you?
So it's funny, like Disney is phenomenal, because every time I think of Disney, every time I'm at a theme park, I just feel joy. Like I just associate Disney World to joy. And it's so powerful that they're able to do that. But I love to go to all the parks. My two girls have been going since they were born, pretty much. I mean, there was that year during COVID that we didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But they're theme park enthusiasts. My oldest is starting to get in all the rides. So, I mean, Magic Kingdom is our favorite just because it has a lot of the kind of classic rides in there. So I'm excited to kind of see what the new villain area will bring. But we're also the Hollywood Studios for the Star Wars area is so much fun. And I'm a Disney and Star Wars nerd. So to kind of see a huge life-size Millennium Falcon and then get to go on a ride, you know, attacking and kind of fighting with the rebels is so super fun, just to kind of feel like you're in that world that they've created through these movies.
Yeah. I really like Hollywood Studios. It's just not an all day thing though. Usually if you get there earlier in the morning, if you do a rope drop, meaning that you get there right when the park opens, you can get almost everything done in the morning and move on to a different park and do a little bit of park hopping. But Magic Kingdom, I don't know. Unless the park's totally empty, you're not getting through every ride in Magic Kingdom.
No. Even when the nice thing about having a pass is we just kind of go for a few hours whenever we want. So we went a few weeks ago. I think we got there at like 5:00. We ate some dinner and we went on like 4 or 5 rides. But it's just still a couple of hours where you get to go and have some fun. And like I said, kind of be kind of engrossed in that world that just makes you feel magical.
Yeah, you get into that, what they call the Disney bubble, right?
Yes.
And so it's funny. I think back to our first trip last year as annual pass holders, and got to the hotel. And I highly recommend staying in a Disney hotel because you can get in early and everything else. And you got benefits and you can ride buses and all this other stuff. Well, because I'm riding buses all week, I never had a need to go back to my car. And I didn't realize until we went to leave that I left my driver's side door open. The whole, I mean, window, not door, the window open all week long. Now it was a miracle because during that time it didn't rain once in Orlando.
It is a miracle.
That is a miracle, but nothing happened. It was just open the whole entire week. And nobody did anything to it or anything like that. But it was like I was literally 4 straight days did not go back to my car because I was just in the bubble, riding buses, going to all the parks.
It's just great. I mean, my husband is a Universal. He's anti-Disney, but for my daughter, she wanted to go, so he went because he loves his daughter and he is an excellent father. But we're a couple hours in. It was her and a couple of friends, so we had 4 kids with us. It was hot. It was sweaty. And he just looks at me because we're standing in line. He goes, "Do you enjoy this?" And I said, "Absolutely. Like I'm fine. I'm having a ball, right? We're in line for a Star Wars ride. I got my snacks. We're playing games. So we're good."
Yeah, and it's there is a vibe there with Disney and the people that are going there, and it might be their first and only trip to Disney, so they're excited and there's, there's like to me, there's so many older folks in scooters. Like you will never see more scooters in your life than in Disney World. They are just everywhere. It's like strollers and scooters are everywhere. But there definitely is a different vibe at Disney than Universal.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, the kids get to see, I mean, my kids are getting a little older, so when they see a character that they love, they maybe don't get as excited as they used to when they're younger, but we'll stand in line and we'll start chatting with somebody who, like you said, like this is their first time at Disney, and they see Mickey Mouse and they'll just start screaming. I'll be like, oh my goodness, did Mickey Mouse just wave at you? And they'll be like, yes. And just to kind of see that smile on their face, it's just so innocent, so happy, and it's just, yeah, magical. See, they sell magic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm with your husband though. I am more of a Universal person but I'm more into roller coasters
Yes.
and that the need for speed type of thing. So I
Mhm.
get that. We have annual passes with Universal, and so many times, and like you get spoiled, right? And you start thinking about stuff, and I'm analyzing stuff. So I'm to the point now where for Islands of Adventure on Universal, if you're rope dropping, meaning that again that you're there when the park opens, if you are within like 30 people in line, my recommendation is go straight back to Hagrid's because you will probably ride that ride in 30 minutes, and for the rest of
Versus
the
the
day,
90,
yeah, for the rest of the day,
125
it'll be
minutes is
90
normally it.
plus, right?
Yep.
But if you get past there, then maybe you gotta
Just
go
wait
to
till the end of the day.
Velocicoaster. Yeah, you gotta go to Velocicoaster. I mean, you get on Velocicoaster because it does a bunch of loops, and a lot of people don't like the loopy loops. But it's
Hmm.
funny that I'm strategically trying to figure out like what is that magic number and number of people in line that I would suggest going straight back to Hagrid's, the Harry Potter world. And so it is a lot of fun. I there is so much to do and food and just different excitement to go into the amusement parks and experiencing everything.
Agreed.
I could talk to you for an hour about this. I got to be careful. I do have one of the rides at Universal Islands of Adventure is Jurassic Falls.
Hmm.
And that is for those, it's just think of this big log ride where it's a water ride where there's, I don't know, it's probably like 5 rows and you can fit like 4 or 5 people crossed. So you can
Yeah.
easily
Big
get
drop
like
at the
20.
end.
Yeah,
Yep.
you can get 20 people on there. And so after a while you ride that and it's not exciting or whatever it is. And this one time I was on there. I think I was riding single rider where I was just jumping on, and they just stuck me with this family who was riding it all for the first time. And their excitement got me excited trying to remember what it felt like to ride it for the first time. And the just to go through and just having somebody have that excitement of riding it for the first time, it made it that particular ride special, even though I had probably rode that ride like 20 times now.
And I had the same thought when Epic Universe just opened and I was fortunate enough to go, and I was like, this, right? It's been years since I've been able to go to a theme park and not know what to expect. And I was on
No,
purpose trying not to read all of the blogs and all of the
me
website. Like
too.
I wanted to be surprised because the last time I was surprised was when Islands of Adventure opened. And I actually remember when Islands of Adventure didn't exist and it was only
Oh
Universal, and
wow.
there was like a model how they did for Epic. There was the model for Islands of Adventure, and they had the Jurassic Park area and the Marvel, right? Spider-Man was a big thing. I was like, this is so cool. So I remember
Wow.
when that happened so many years ago. So it was kind of nice to experience because I'm with you. It's you go on it so many times, we kind of take it for granted sometimes that when you see the joy of the surprise that was coming on certain rides, when people experience that, it's just so much fun.
Yeah, and it's funny. I'm such a geek that I found like a YouTuber that shows like develop videos on what Universal was opening day versus now. So show different
Mhm.
pictures of like now and then, and I could just eat it all up. Like to me, it's fascinating. But I also got to go to Epic, so it was funny that you were going through. And I was like, I don't want to be spoiled. I don't want to
Yeah, right.
be
I don't want to know.
spoiled. So, but it is fantastic what they were able to do with that park and all the different worlds and how immersive they are and how you feel like you're in the land. And so it's different. It's a breath of fresh air. It's new and it's exciting.
Yes.
Oh man. So what was your favorite world in Epic Universe?
It was Nintendo. So we
Mm.
first started without the interactive bracelet, and
Mm-hmm.
then I was starting to see how many different spots you could use it. And my husband is a big gamer. We grew up, right? We grew up on Nintendo, so it was his birthday present. So I was like, okay, we're just gonna go get him, and then we started going around and interacting, and just we
Yeah.
did all the rides in the area. We did the rest of the park, and then it was probably like 30 minutes before the park was closing, and I was like, let's just go back to Nintendo. And to see that area lit up at night was
Yeah.
just so much fun. And we went around playing. We went around playing the little games, and it's funny. There was one little interactive thing that you had to do, and the girl that was working there was the people in front of us was like a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old. So they got up, they went, they did it. But then when it was just about to be our turn, the employee looks at me and she goes, "Do you want to know how to play?" And I kind of want to be like, dude, we've been playing video games for like 35 years, but sure, like I would love to hear the instructions as to how to do it. So she gave it, but we were able to do it and we won. We got the gold coin at the end.
Yeah.
So it was just fun. It just made us feel kind of like a kid again. We didn't have kids, so it was a nice like mommy and daddy outing to have fun and then to be able to kind of show our kids what it's going to be when we take them in a couple of months.
Yeah, yeah. So that park at night is just something special. I mean, a lot of the parks are magical at night, but especially just real quick, Magic Kingdom, Tiana's. I realized that when you go up, just about ready to go down the big hill, you have that view of the castle, and at
It's so
night it's
pretty.
it's
hmm
fantastic. But
We
yeah,
just
but
we
this
just went on Seven Dwarfs, and it was when the fireworks show was up, and my
yeah.
daughter, right, we came up the hill and like a firework just exploded in our view, and I was like, oh, see, just magical.
Yeah, yeah. So when we were at Epic, we were just at Epic a couple weeks ago, and we had the worst. It was just last week, so it was a thunderstorm. It was either 90 degrees or thunderstorming the whole entire time, and so they actually kept unofficially, I think they did it. They kept the park open longer, and we were doing the Stardust Racers at night, and you could see lightning in the background. So we were like with each ride, we were thinking like, oh, they're gonna get the call, they're gonna shut the ride down, and there was just this vibe of everybody clapping and yelling and screaming with each ride going through, knowing that they got one step closer to being on the ride. And so my daughter and we didn't think we would get on, but not only did we get on, we got selected for the front, and so it was just like this perfect way to end that day. So we were really excited. So again, I got to stop because I could literally talk to you for hours on this. But I guess for the listeners, hey, in the chat or wherever you're getting this, so you want to send me an email, leapodcasts@gmail.com. If you have Disney or Universal Orlando questions, and I'm sure Jennifer and I will be happy to answer them. All right, Jennifer, let's finish up with words to the world. And this is where you can promote any idea that you wish. What are your words to the world?
My first is to go for it. Try something you've never tried before. You don't know where it'll take you. I gave 911 a try and I didn't know where that would take me. And each little decision has kind of opened up my world a little bit, kind of follows along until you have no idea, like the smallest decision that you make, what kind of impact it will have. One day it was like, oh, maybe I'll go work for 911. And that professionally started me on my path to where I've been for the last 20 years. Personally, as the best decision because it's where I met my husband. I have two beautiful daughters. So it's just that you play that game of what if you hadn't done that? What would your world look like? So those small decisions can kind of lead to anything. And the kind of last thing that I like to tell people, especially getting in this field or having been in this field, is make sure you take care of yourself. We're very dedicated professionals and we like to help people, but we get exposed to a lot of horrible things, unfortunately. Desensitizes us. You need to make sure you're taking care of yourself. And if you have vacation or time off, take the time off. Don't check those emails. If you don't have to answer that phone call, don't answer it because you need to also take care of your mental and your emotional well-being.
Very good. Well, I leave every guest with you've given me just enough to talk bad about you later. But I do appreciate you being on the show, Jennifer. Thank you so much, and you be safe.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you for making it to the end of another episode of Analyst Talk with Jason Elder. You can show your support by sharing this and other episodes found on our website at www.leapodcasts.com. If you have a topic you would like us to cover or have a suggestion for our next guest, please send us an email at leapodcasts@gmail.com. Till next time, analysts, keep talking.